Rotation
$750,
lock.
right?
Rotate
This is what
device
LA
back.
helped
Fuck off.
determine. Spend money. I've always been in this way, like spend money to make money, but I mean, even more so. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if guys can spend 17K in rent because they're like, it's 10xing their lifestyle, you know,
Yeah.
and like in like all their business, it's like
Okay. Well, we're live. Not the way I want it to be, though.
live. On the cash flow to go show.
Yep. Okay. Cool.
All right, we're live.
Hey guys.
We got Matt McKeever live here. We got John Kepler all the way in from Owen Sound. Hello. And you got Jeff Weib over here. And sorry, absent this week.
Yeah. No randomly interesting Adam Steeper, so we're going to make do with Mitt.
Adam, we miss you. But
Mitt.
Mitt, CPA, you want to come over and say hi? Let him see you in a nice suit. So Mitt is going to be doing our questions.
So yeah, feel free. Mitt will be kind of moderating in the chat, so jump in, throw your questions out in the chat room. Mitt will help you out, as well as he'll be the ones kind of reading off the questions to us. But while we kind of wait for the chat to fill up, everyone that's watching, smash that like button right now and hit subscribe if you're not already subscribed. But otherwise, we'll maybe just kind of dive into.
And please share.
Yes.
Right now.
Share this.
Share on your Facebooks, on your Twitter, whatever. Let's get a lot of people into this chat asking us questions.
Yeah, last week we hit a new record. I think it was 33 peak concurrents. So
We
it'd
can
be
beat
really
that.
awesome if we could beat 33.
34.
Right? I think
We can do
34 is doable.
What are we at already?
We are at 9 watching right now.
All right,
Nine.
so
Okay,
look
that's
at 9
good
guys. Let's get the shares out there, right?
Yeah.
Don't pay lip service to it. So.
And so in the meantime, let's dive into John's background a little
All
bit.
right, so welcome to the show.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you. John came all the way down from Owen Sound. I really appreciate you driving down. It's not a.
how
you
long?
do it enough, but.
Tell the audience how
Yeah.
long the drive was.
It's about 2.5 hours.
Okay, yeah.
So.
And so you were telling us earlier that born and raised in Owen Sound. Mind just kind of going into how you originally got into real estate and.
Yeah, I figured out pretty early that I wanted to do real estate, but of course I had no way to get started. I think that's pretty common.
Yeah.
And so I had to wait a few years, and I just read everything I could. My girlfriend and I saved up some money, bought a house, and then bought a purpose-built investment property after that, and bought my 14th property a couple of weeks ago.
Congrats, man. That's huge.
Thank you.
That's awesome. And so right now you're all focused in Owen Sound, right?
Yeah, very focused on a small area, all downtown even.
Yeah.
Everything is within 3 or 4 kilometers.
Okay, yeah. So you really just kind of became a specialist in like one specific niche and just dived deep into it.
Exactly.
That's awesome. And so walk us through like maybe that first property you purchased, if you don't mind, like the first income property.
Sure. Again, wanted to do it for years, so we tried to save money. My house appreciated nicely and I was able to refinance, so that also helped get some free cash. And we had $30,000, needed way more than that, so made a deal with the vendor. Did a classic vendor take back.
Your first income, that a lot of people in the comment section are going to be really inspired by that because vendor takebacks are something we hear about all the time, but it's usually you're just reading about it in the books. It's a lot harder to actually find someone that did in real life.
Exactly.
So, like, were they open to it from the beginning, or did you kind of bring it up? How did that come to be?
So this is a few years ago now, right? But even back then, I felt exactly like that. I worried that it was in the past, or I worried it was only for Americans.
Yeah.
And I just started asking. And as it turns out, in my market, people have to do these things sometimes. Frankly, if you have an investor who's been in for 10 or 20 years, they're supposed to know their business and they should be familiar.
Yeah,
and
true.
so some of them don't know what they're doing, but other ones will know exactly what you're trying to achieve. And especially if they're towards retirement or at the end of their career, they're happy to help you get in and make it all work.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
that really is. And so, like, how was it a lot more complicated compared to dealing with just like the normal legal process and the normal real estate process? Was that hard to navigate, or?
The paperwork wasn't that complicated. Even negotiating it wasn't that complicated.
Yeah.
It was more the sheer fear of doing it. And the fact that your ask is so large. Like, here's what I need from you, sir. I don't have even close to what I need, but you do for me.
It's like that asking the question, putting
Yeah.
yourself in that uncomfortable situation. It's very honoring
Yeah, that's
that you did
inspiring. I think a lot of people in the comment section will really love that.
Yeah.
So feel free to jump in, give us your vendor take-back questions, and we'll bounce them off of John. But otherwise, so recently me and Jeff just got back from LA where we were visiting Graham Stephan. I know there's a lot of people on the channel that are kind of familiar with Graham, so it was super cool again to see Graham kind of in his natural habitat.
Yeah.
As well as just me and Jeff had never been to LA before, so that was like
definitely eye-opening out there. And,
Yeah.
I think we got some videos that are out or coming out in the future about it, and just we're going to let's see here, $16 million open houses, and just like I'm going to I went to a $20 million open house. We went to a $45 million plot of land that they can build a
Yeah.
house on for $90 million. It just really opens up your eyes, like some of the sports cars that are out there, and some people that are paying $17,000 a month in rent, and to them it only feels like they're paying about $1,000, $2,000, something like that, because they've like 10x their business. So it's very fascinating that this exists in our world, where sometimes I feel Southwestern Ontario can like keep you in their little bubble, and like to go there and see that these things are possible out there. So like think big, guys. So
yeah, there's people that are actually doing it. And what's really cool about that $17,000 a month rental, they were still kind of house hacking it,
Yes.
right? Like he had some of his employees
Take
living
notes.
with him. So like you're still getting that really rock star lifestyle without necessarily paying the retail price for it. So
the
like
corporation buying the rent, pretty much,
Yeah.
most likely, and then had somebody living in a little wing there. So okay, and then you put that down to maybe like about $9,000 a month in rent,
Mhm.
because the other guy's paying the other half of it. Now it just seems like and then they're making $100,000, $200,000 a month, and it's like, oh, it doesn't seem as bad.
proportionately, yeah.
So LA was just ratios. There may have been $16 million open houses, and agents might be making this, and investors this. It's the same thing we're doing, just at a different ratio of a level, like much higher, but same negotiation tactics, everything.
Yeah.
Kinda, you go talk to agents over there, it's all the same conversations, just higher price points.
Yeah, and so like that's really eye-opening, because it kind of it makes it a lot easier to give yourself permission to start thinking
Yeah.
and dreaming bigger. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway we have from the
100%.
entire trip was just thinking and dreaming bigger. So that was super awesome. And speaking of thinking big and dreaming bigger, we're planning the next Limo tour.
So, as of today, I'll announce to the Cash Flow to Go audience that
Exclusive.
we will be doing the Weibo Limo Tour. How many people we got watching?
We got 10 people watching.
10 people watching. Weibo Limo Tour every month from now on. So the next one will be, write this down, December 17th, starting at noon, most likely. I'll have a Facebook group about it soon, or a little post, and it'll be from the office here, which I will post. It's a new office downtown for the agency. So every month we're gonna have a Weibo Limo Tour.
Yeah, very excited for that. And so if you just joined, make sure you smash that like button. And we'd still love for you guys to share this video, share it on your social media platforms, particularly Facebook. For whatever reason, Facebook is where I get a lot of my organic views, so I'd really love to get more from that. But otherwise, cheers guys, and
Cheers.
thanks so much, John, for joining
Yes,
us.
John, thank you so much. And we're only drinking because Graham Stephan told us it's better to drink when we're on video, so that's his fault.
And so what are we drinking?
Today we're drinking duty-free bullet bourbon, so it's 45%. So
Got a little kick to it. So what's going on in the comments, man? Do we got anything?
We got a couple. So I guess one of the questions would be for John. You've obviously discussed that you have got some income properties going, but do you do any buy and flips?
I haven't done any buy and flips. I've always thought about it. Perhaps they mean single family as well, right? That seems to be how people start. I put a lot of effort into each one of my deals, and I'm a bigger fan of the BRRRR method. I put so much time and effort into getting it and locking it down. I don't really want out. The longer I stay in, the better I do. And I mean, some quick, easy cash would be great, but then it would be over and I'd have to go do it again. So I haven't done that. I like to stay in.
And so we haven't really touched upon it yet, but this is your full-time gig now, right?
It is.
So when did you make that transition? How did you decide it was kind of the right time to jump into it?
I used to be a computer consultant, and I had a couple of clients that were paying me most of my money, so I didn't have 100 clients or anything like that.
Okay.
I had a few small ones and then a couple substantial ones. And so, frankly, I felt that I was on a clock. I could see that some of those clients, one of them was in financial trouble. Actually, one of them didn't pay me. They stiffed me for $25,000.
Oh, wow.
And the other one you could just see that things were going poorly. I remember they used to give their staff extravagant food. Not me. I was a remote consultant, but they used to have a huge food budget, and then they cut it back, and we all thought, we've got 6 months, and they're going to stop paying us. And yeah, it's 6 months. They stopped paying us. So I knew I had to get in. So I saw it ahead of time, and I had a chance to prepare. But I knew that I couldn't be the consultant forever, and that I had to transition.
Okay. And so, like, how long ago would that have been now?
That wrapped up mostly in 2010. 2010 is when I bought that first purpose-built rental with the vendor take-back. So actually, as that last major client slowed the payments back to almost zero, I was just closing. So it was well timed. I was still getting paid nicely as I was negotiating, and then as closing came closer, it just one went down and one went up.
Perfect. That's awesome. That's actually really inspiring. So you've been 7 years. That's awesome. That's quite a while. So you've seen a decent chunk of the market, right? But that market's so far, like Owen Sound, I'm assuming similar to London, you're really not counting on appreciation, right?
Not substantial appreciation, but you're still going to appreciate more than the guideline, the rental increase cap. So you get a few percent every year, nothing massive. London and Owen Sound have more in common than you might first suspect. Definitely slower, more predictable, more dependable growth.
Yeah.
We're not going to have our values just tank 20 or 30%. Our values are basically set pending anything catastrophic like an enormous increase in interest rates or rents going way down, which is almost impossible. It's slower, but it's stable.
Yeah. That's awesome. Mitt, anything else going on?
Well, we got one other question from Gene Simon, and the question about ever thinking about, if any of you guys ever think about building something new. In this case, his reference or her reference is in relation to in New Brunswick, there's a living space for seniors where they can live autonomously, but I guess you build your own retirement home or a consortium of sorts. Any long-term plans into entering that space?
Yeah.
I think it would be a nice thing to do. For me right now, it's not anything more than that. Every year or two, I seriously consider it because I would like to see my career go in that direction, but the numbers always stop me. Perhaps in that market, things are a little different, but right now in my part of Ontario, building is tough, it's expensive, and if I can get more inventory, people aren't going to be building around me or pushing my numbers down any. So it's better just to stay with something already built.
Yeah, and so me and Jeff have definitely looked at this and talked about it. Just as a side note, do you mind like commenting and shit? Like keep it going.
Yeah.
Steve's really good at that. And so like what we've done is we spent days down at City Hall, right, trying to kind of learn the processes, really get a fundamental understanding of kind of how the London plan works. Because at the end of the day, you're really going to have to fit whatever sort of development you're hoping to accomplish in with kind of the city's guidelines for what they're expecting. And so, me and Jeff have looked at maybe accumulating a couple parcels and trying to build up. And so I think that's still on the vision board, but nothing currently actively.
You definitely have to do your homework on that, or you can get burnt, right? So.
Yeah.
It says something about the market, though. I mean, it sounds like all three of us could be induced to do it if we were given what we needed to do.
Yes.
But it's not always there.
Well, yeah, and like frequently we're able to acquire properties at well below their replacement value. And so that's inherently going to incentivize us to really focus on just acquiring already built construction properties. Because I don't see the margin or the success level, and essentially at the end of the day, building or developing a building is a whole new business, right? We're very familiar with buy and holds, the burn investment strategy, and like in my experience, it's mainly like small multifamily properties. And so to move into some sort of larger development it's a pivot. It's like a hard fork in your business plan. So I think that's something definitely to keep in mind. But for example, our buddy Sean Allen is starting to redevelop, I think it was like an old school, right? And they're turning that into like an 11 unit condo down in Tilsonburg. And so like some of those repurposes I find really interesting, right? Like the idea of buying an old factory, an old downtown property that's maybe been neglected or abandoned, and reconverting it and finding a better use or an up use for it. And so right now, John, you have any commercial properties in your portfolio?
I have some mixed use.
Yeah.
So there's some stores on the first level.
And do you mind walking us through? We haven't really had a lot of people on with commercial experience. Kind of walk us through what's the differences when you're dealing with a commercial tenant versus a residential tenant.
Fair enough. In a sentence, commercial is harder to fill. So you absolutely need a plan. In residential, if you make a couple of mistakes, you can replace a customer, you can move your rents around a little bit. With commercial, you risk a lot of vacancy if you don't have a plan. So the buildings that I've bought that have a commercial component don't need a lot of commercial rent in order to carry. So if I have a store on the first floor and apartments up above, the apartments are covering the mortgage. If I have some extended vacancy in the first floor, I can still cover everything.
Yeah, that's true. I know I've looked at a few of those mixed-use older buildings as well, and that's exactly the same formula I'm approaching it with, just because I want that kind of safety net. Because I agree, like, a commercial vacancy can last a year, 2 years, right? Like, that's very possible.
And I mean, if you want to do multifamily investing and you're committed, you'll probably be successful. It's something that you can do if you put your nose down and study and figure it out. Commercial can require a lot of connections and a lot of skill. There are a couple of people, perhaps one in particular in my market, who frankly are more skilled than me at commercial. They have the ability to attract certain tenants in certain ways that I can't, and they know more about it than I do. So I also stay out of their way. Some of those people can get an above average result and a better than expected return because they're still leveraging their network and their contacts and their experience. And it's much easier to get started in multifamily than to hit it out of the park in commercial.
Yeah, that's a very great point too, is that the connections can be very huge, particularly in a smaller market too, where your pool of potential commercial tenants, I assume, is going to be a lot smaller.
Exactly.
Anything going on in the comments, man?
Yeah, we got one question from, it's YouTube related, not really real estate, but Lynn3203 works full time, 50-60 hours a week, and invests in real estate, and is looking into getting to YouTube in regards to financial education and real estate, and just wondering what it's like. And they're from California, so I guess really Southern California, so whether they should be educating others on their market and what value they could potentially provide.
Sure, yeah. I think, YouTube or any social media platform is a really powerful marketing tool, and there's a lot to value whether you're a real estate agent, real estate investor, or just trying to help people in general. It's and YouTube's one of the best ways. I think audio, video, media is fantastic. People can listen to you if they just want to listen. They can watch you and be fully engaged. It definitely is tough getting the YouTube channel started. Jeff's kind of going through the growing pains right now.
Like even Mitt was making fun of some of my volume on one of my videos wasn't good enough, but like just take that jump in there, start doing the videos, start figuring it out. You're not going to be as good as the other YouTubers out there, but you're slowly going to get better and better in every video you put out, and then you can always like bury those old videos once you start getting your subscribership. So, and then you're going to kind of like use the same stuff. You're going to comment on other similar channels. You're going to provide input on their channels. They're going to come over to your channel, and vice versa. So I definitely think you should do it. If you want any, like Matt is the guy that started it out when nobody else was doing it in London, and you decided I need to talk to an audience about what I'm doing.
And so like what ended up happening was I was finding myself far too often having a one-on-one conversation, and then nothing was coming from that one-on-one conversation. So I might write like a 3,000 word thesis on...
You used to write the longest emails.
Right, on burying investment properties, and then my response would be, thanks, at most, or crickets at worst. And it definitely got frustrating, and I realized like this isn't scalable in any way, and so that's what YouTube or any social media platform to me is. It's really an amazing way to scale and have one-to-many conversations. And what's great is it's there for posterity's sake too, so people can come back and check it out. And so I'm not sure, have you ever dabbled on YouTube, John?
Not with my own channel. No.
Okay, and like I know you're big on Instagram though. Do you mind kind of talking us through what Instagram is to you, or how you've got to where you're at?
Sure. I'm John Kepler on Instagram. No H, so JONKEPLER. KEPLER.
We'll put it in the notes later.
Perfect. I've been posting a little less lately, but I I've made some really interesting connections. I've made a number of work connections actually. People in the community who are also posting. In my town as well, fewer people use it than you might expect. So it's not that hard to get to the top using various local hashtags and getting some recognition for what you're doing.
Yeah.
I was recognized in a Tim Hortons drive-through once. That's kind of
That's
fun.
awesome.
There you go. Celebrity status.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. I get to feel that for 5 seconds. Yeah. So it has really contributed to my business though. I never thought it would. I was doing it for fun, and I was doing it because I thought it might turn into something in a couple of years.
Mhm.
But
And there's a lot of people afraid to start right now.
Yeah, well, like Jeff always comments on that, like, don't be scared about Susie from high school.
Mhm.
And so, like, Susie's just a random name, but like the idea is like, don't let those people from your past hold you back from your future. I think it's
Like,
the
is
real
there any
takeaway.
Owen Sound people that are like, John, you're always posting like these photos or something like that, like those Debbie Downers in like your circle or something like that, or
I think so.
yeah. Did you ever feel every time you post that they might be watching
Like that sort of self
versus like not giving a crap and then the rest of the world is like rewarding you for it?
Yeah, I think we all have a couple
Yeah.
people like
Mhm.
that, but you try not to think about it very much. I haven't had anyone become overly aggressive, which maybe right at the beginning was appreciated. Perhaps it could have had an effect if someone I really cared about said, "This is horrible." I've also seen colleagues of mine in the area, but in different businesses, do the same thing. I've had acquaintances post videos, and I thought, that's terrible. But I would never say that to them. And then a few months later, they posted one, and I thought, oh, that was better. They've actually improved their skill
Takes
set.
time, yeah.
Yeah, but I respect them for it. So I think if I thought at one point they were terrible, again, I never say it, but if I thought they were bad, they improved. Maybe someone thought I was bad or thinks I'm bad right now, or maybe they even will tell me. But maybe in 6 months they'll think I'm a little better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's all about those incremental gains, right? If you never start, you're never going to improve.
Well, and technically, those are the people that are going to be jealous of you 5 years from now. And they're
Mhm.
going to be like, wow, look what John did. I wish I could do that. And
Yeah.
then they would never do a post, right? Or they would never buy multifamily. Or like it's like always like, that's hard. Or that's difficult for me. Or, that scares me. So
Exactly.
it can be across many platforms, not just real estate.
There's a concept called the slight edge. I'm not too much into all the self-help stuff, but they say that small improvements compounded over time make all the difference. So you don't have to do twice what Susie from high school
Mhm.
does or thinks you should do. You just have to do a little bit more than Susie. And Susie's probably not doing very much.
Yeah,
So
that's
just
a
do a
great
little
point.
more than her and then let it
Great.
compound.
That's awesome.
Awesome. So we got a little more action in the comments.
Yeah.
I think one of the more interesting one is we have, I'm going to butcher this, so I apologize. Fionn Zieler Freud's Kampfer, who's from Germany.
Sorry, say it again.
Let's not do that. In Germany, they don't have an MLS, and so similarly, I know in Canada we have the MLS, and there's a lot of deals there, but everyone sort of sees those deals, and so they were wondering, how do you go into a market where, for example, the MLS isn't where you have it? How do you source the deals? How do you vet them? And they're saying how they're having a lot of time getting anywhere close to 1%.
Well,
And is that 1% rule consistent worldwide, or maybe let's talk about that as well?
I wouldn't say it's worldwide.
Guten Abend. Thank you for logging in from Germany.
I wouldn't say the 1% rule is worldwide. It's all over the map. It's interesting that they don't have one unified system like that, yet prices are as high as they are.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'm kind of digesting this live, but if people aren't seeing the listings and the exposure isn't happening, you would think prices would be lower and fewer people would appreciate the benefit enough to bid everything up. So it sounds like there might be another system.
It might be estate agents there potentially. Maybe you can ask them
Yeah.
how it's presented.
And like my only other thoughts are like, is there a Craigslist or a Kijiji alternative in Germany that's being used to
And-
post private
And
deals?
I think you would just go back to like what we do here anyways. Try to find a group of people that are doing the
Yeah.
same thing as you, and they're gonna maybe know more than you. Have a meetup in one of your pubs and start talking real estate, and maybe they're gonna know some deals that maybe meet the 1% rule or find these all out because they're obviously not on the internet, right? So,
Yeah, but yeah, I agree with what John was saying. Like, you're not going to find the 1% rule in every market. And I know nothing about the European market, but in North America, I often say, and I've heard it said on Bigger Pockets multiple times as well, pretty much anywhere in continental North America within a 4 to 5 hour drive, you can probably find a market that does meet the 1% rule. So you may not be able to invest in your backyard, but you can still find it in your vicinity. I'm not sure if that's the case in Europe, but at the end of the day, you may have to look at alternatives, right? Maybe can you pivot instead of renting it out as a multifamily property? Is there an Airbnb alternative where maybe you can get a higher return on it? As well, you know, maybe it's more of an appreciation play. Again, I'm not nearly as familiar
Great
with that
points.
market,
Yeah.
but
Strangely, I've been reading a lot of UK media.
okay, yeah.
And our market is, I don't know if mature is the right word, but it's very defined. We all have our spreadsheets and formulas. We all know what we're doing. And I think that is almost uniform across North America. I don't
Yeah.
think there's a particular state in the USA where they just don't have formulas, don't know what they're doing. They all kind of know. In the UK, they call it buy to let. And buy to let is curiosity to a lot of people. They don't all have it down. There are even large landlords that own dozens of properties who don't really do math.
Really?
It's strange. It kind of feels like the Wild West in certain ways. So again, I don't know anything about the German market, but there are going to be major differences, and some of them might be able to work for your advantage.
Yeah, well, one thing that springs to mind is if there really isn't a centralized listing system, that means to me there has to be an opportunity for information asymmetry, right? Like if it's hard to find that data, that just means you need to work a bit harder, but you should get rewarded more for it. If there's a bigger moat, a bigger barrier to entry to get into the property market and find great deals, it means a lot fewer people are actually going to execute upon it. So I think that that could actually be, it may feel like a negative right now, but you may be able to turn that into a positive for yourself.
Also, I don't know how old the commenter is, but keep in mind that there are a lot of older people who've been in the business for a long time, and they want to help a younger person out.
Yes.
They've done well. All you need to do is get introduced to them and have them see that you're kind of a younger version of them. You're just trying to get where they are. And a lot of older people find it quite gratifying to help you get started.
Absolutely, that's always been my experience, that at the end of the day, you know, if you're hardworking and you're motivated and they can even see just like the tip of the iceberg of that, they're going to project themselves upon you, because there's one time they were in your shoes and they remember what it's like to just kind of be that deer in the headlights. So yeah, I don't underestimate the power of networking and getting a mentor.
Okay, so what kind of properties are you guys focusing on right now, and what are you looking for as you move into 2018?
Yeah, so what's property 15 look like, or is there property 15?
There are a couple of possibilities. I have one under contract at the moment. We'll have to see. When I bought that first purpose-built building, it was 6 apartments and a store, so 7 units. So at that point, I thought, well, I'm going to buy 7 units and larger. I want to go up and up and up. So my next 2 buildings were a duplex and a triplex from the same seller. And I said, I'm only going to deal with you if you sell me both. I'm not going to just buy a duplex from you. I don't want to go from closing on a 7-unit property to closing just on a 2-unit property. I don't want to go backwards. And that was misguided. I bought triplexes since, a few of them. My largest building was only 8 units. I keep going with the boutique style. It works. And a lot of my customers who I speak to, they are very set on avoiding something with an institutional feel.
Yeah.
If you take 1 floor in a 3-floor house, it still has that house feel. They want to feel like, even if the grass isn't solely their grass, that at least the property has some grass, and that it's more of a neighborhood, not a big institutional structure.
Yeah, I think we're definitely seeing that a lot in London, Ontario too, where people are drawn towards, you know, they want to live in like a century home that's maybe been subdivided into multiple units rather than live in a high rise.
Exactly.
And just because there's more character, it feels more homely.
Another interesting thing is you've talked about the 1031 exchange on
Yeah.
some of your other videos. So go check those out. Not enough people talk about it, and I was really surprised when I saw that you had a video on it, because that's great. It's exactly what people should talk about. Doesn't happen in Canada.
Yeah, I'm so jealous.
Yeah, but what a lot of the information you read online says buy a few small properties, flip them, move into something larger, just kind of churn.
Mhm.
And it's a lot harder to do that without a 1031 exchange.
Absolutely, yeah.
So in terms of what I'm buying next, I don't plan to unload much of what I have. I'm not going to sell 5 or 10 properties in order to come up with a down payment for one very large one. I'm just going to keep accumulating small buildings as I go.
Yeah, and so I think right now for myself, what does the next property look like? Again, very similar. It's honestly very subjective, situational. It depends what's coming up. Right now, I'm in negotiations on just a random fourplex, as well as purchasing small portfolio properties from an older landlord that's retiring. You know, both those deals could come together, and those are my next 5 properties right there, or they could fall apart, and I could end up buying some little small rise apartment. It really is situational for myself, and I don't know what Jeff is
Just
thinking.
looking at like larger multifamily properties as well with no grass.
Oh, fair enough.
Get that
Fair
institution
enough.
feel.
Some of mine do not have grass, but they're still on the smaller side.
Yeah.
Okay, so in that light, if you're all going for income properties in a sense, you obviously need to fill them with tenants. What are some key tips you use to screen tenants and saved you headaches and allowed you long-term retention of good tenants?
One of the most surprising things I found is I eliminate a lot of the chance of getting a bad tenant by advertising hard and getting a lot of applicants. So people talk about how they had this one person and they rented them and they thought they were going to be great and the tables turned or they were lied to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that much of that comes with putting too much faith in 1 or 2 applicants.
Yeah.
So perhaps this is unconventional advice, but just push the property hard. I'll load up to 8 showings in 1 or 2 hour period. People show up every 15 minutes, and we have a lot of applicants. So when you have a lot of applicants, if someone's weak or there's a chance they're lying about something or some of the references don't work out, we have other applicants. And then you don't have to play a game with yourself about will you take that person or won't you take them and try to gamble whether they're going to work out when part of you knows they won't.
And so how are you advertising, John?
Just Kijiji.
Solely Kijiji. And so are you doing like sponsored ads or anything, or just the plain Jane basic ads?
No, basic ads.
Yeah. So just
Still.
like 8 photos and a nice written description?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't have terrible photos, but I used to improve the lighting and brightness and really, I do little effects. Yeah. It didn't actually get me more applicants. It's nice. I'll do it when I have the time, but just show the unit honestly, and people just want to see enough in the photos to get them there, and then the photos don't really matter after they see the place.
Yeah, and so I think just one pro tip that John kind of mentioned there, and it was almost a throwaway comment, but doing your showings back to back to back is really useful for multiple reasons. Like, one, it starts creating a sense of scarcity when people when they only have 15 minutes to view it, and then the next person's coming, you're like, okay, great, well you can still kind of hang around for a little bit, but my next showing's coming. And what ends up happening is frequently all people flake on me on Kijiji. And if you go to the property just for one showing at 6 p.m., it's extremely frustrating. But if you're there from a window anyways, and you kind of mentally prepared, and you're like, I'm here from 6 to 7 anyways, I'm going to show it 5 or 6 times, it's not nearly as frustrating if 1 or 2 flake on you. So I just wanted to highlight that too.
I think in real estate, things can get tough when, again, you kind of play games with yourself. You know that you know better, but you feel some pressure to do this thing that you probably shouldn't do. So just engineer your system so that you don't get into that situation. Again, if we have lots of applicants, we don't have to worry about whether this one applicant is a problem and play the mind
or
game,
whether
right?
they're good enough.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so I think one thing that Jeff's really good at is reducing turnover. So he's always rewarding his tenants and building a strong relationship with them with little gifts. And
Gift baskets to begin with, but it can also go back to how did they even fill out your application to begin with? If they cannot even spend the time to fill out the application, they're probably not going to be a good tenant later on anyways. I always kind of you can nip a lot of the bad tenants in the butt, just like you're saying, signing the lease with them. There's that. There's also a lot of good questionnaires, and I've been meaning to do a video on it, but just little things like, do you prefer smoking or non-smoking? And then well, it's we have all these smoking suites out there that we want to put them in.
What
right?
sort of pets do you
have?
have?
And then do you have a dog? You see that on the application, but I write, what sort of pets do you have? And then they got to be bull, snake, all this stuff, and you're like, huh, and they'll write that down. I had a guy call me once, and I said, well, how many people will be living in the property? And he's like, why do I have to tell you that? And then, so flags are going off right away. I'm like, well, and then asking him what's your name? And he's like, I don't think I should have to tell you this stuff. And I'm like, well, I don't think you should have to rent here. So
yeah, and so it's funny that honestly, just get people talking too.
Yeah.
It's funny, people will talk and talk and talk if you let them. And if you constantly are hearing about how their last landlord was an asshole, and the one before that was an asshole, and the one before that was an asshole, those are red flags, and take those red flags very seriously. Because at the end of the day, you're trusting these people with your whole asset.
So even like Dan Warren will, like you were going on about me about rewarding the tenants. Most landlords will be like, you lost the key, that's $25, but he's dealing a lot with students, right? So, you know, you either come at them for the $25, it's gonna happen. You eat the $3 key cost plus your time. So you know
it's the
get
time
cut.
that matters.
And maybe you should just cut 50 of them when you're there.
Yeah.
Who knows? You probably have to get the locks changed before they even use all the keys. But it's more beneficial for him to keep those people for the 2 years and the 3 years of the school program than it is to go at them like with the traditional landlord hard. Everything. I think there's two different: the students and then your professional tenant. You gotta like be super strict on them. Sometimes the students are, you know, but mommy and daddy are paying usually, so it's not as bad. But,
yeah, I mean, you certainly have to consider what sort of person you're dealing with whenever you encounter an issue, right? And a good tenant is going to stick around. You obviously want to give them the best customer service you can.
Yeah, because far too many people underestimate the cost of turnover.
Right.
Even if you're able to rent it out back to back with no vacancy, there's still paint and cleaning and the time and hassle of having to show the property.
And I don't know I know you just get Xbox games left around, but like I've gotten like thank you cards for like even like the end of the tenancy, and it's all like nice, and like sometimes they actually clean the apartment good. Like
sometimes.
Sometimes even when like they give you the thank you card, sometimes it's not good enough, right? But,
Just a 1 minute story on how different tenants can be, especially since you mentioned cleaning. I had a tenant once who thought their apartment wasn't sufficiently clean, so they called the cops.
Oh my god.
And I think within the same year, it wasn't that long after, I had another tenant who was trying to leave, and they were just being stiffed by all their friends and family that day, the last day of the tenancy. Their moving truck didn't arrive, none of their help showed up, and of course I'm thinking, oh, this new tenant is going to see their apartment isn't ready. Perhaps they'll call the cops. And the new tenants felt really bad about the whole thing and helped the old tenant move out.
Oh wow.
Everybody was happy, and they didn't even call me to say, John, you've done something wrong. They called me to say, we feel so sorry for your old tenant. So there is a broad spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, tenants are just people.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think some of the comments below were relate to regulation and its impact on the market. Like, how do you see it impacting the market come 2018 and onward?
What sort of regulation?
Rent control, lender legislation, like for higher stress tests.
Mortgage rules. Yeah, I think the mortgage rules, just like any mortgage rule, everybody's scared right now, and then by March nobody's gonna be talking about it. The mortgage brokers can amortize that, and they're gonna find ways to make it happen and get people properties. So I don't see it too bad to begin with. I don't know what your guys' thoughts.
And also, we can talk a little about the rent
control. Yeah, for Ontario. Yeah.
Okay. I think perhaps the biggest news recently for the market has been that buildings constructed after 1991 are now under rent control. I don't have any of those. So
does anybody?
it would be a big problem if I was a Toronto condo investor, especially if you buy a unit that doesn't cash flow. I've heard stories that some people are buying these condos not with a 10-year exit plan or a 10-year plan for a certain amount of profit, but like a 10-year plan for cash flow. Mm-hmm. So these things aren't going to do particularly well until their kids take over. Wow. So I wouldn't want to agree to be behind the 8 ball for a 5-year period or something ridiculous like that, and then find out that I have new rent control. Mm-hmm. That sort of regulation would basically wreck our liability.
We're kind of lucky in Owen Sound in London. Like, we don't overly have to deal with that. Most properties are old here, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we've already became accustomed to it.
And that's the problem, right? I mean, when you're bidding against so many other people, everyone changes the rules. You're encouraged to take a less profitable deal. Those people never would have gotten in trouble if they followed the 1% rule or anything close. Mm-hmm. But of course, everyone's bidding everyone else up.
Yeah.
So that's quite bad in Toronto and in certain areas with new construction rentals. The other piece of regulation.
And were you aware of Ontario Bill 144? The commentators wondering about that and how it's just passed first reading.
Yeah, it's not going to pass. It's horrifying if it does.
Do you want to give the viewers a quick highlight of what that?
Sure, I'm on the spot here. I have no notes.
We're going live. Do live.
Double check what I say. You should Google.
Yeah, I'm doing it.
Not now. After we're not live, just double check this. But they want to change rent control so that it is applied to the property rather than to
Yeah.
the tenancy.
So like true rent control. So some people in the United States will be familiar with this type of rent control.
Yes, so basically right now, we can only increase rents on an existing tenancy by the guideline, which this year is 1.5%, next year is 1.8%. But if somebody moves, we can increase rent to market. And it works well for our business because you have tenant turnover, you might have garbage to clean up, you might want to repaint or do some renovations. And it's nice. Every time a tenant moves out, you have an opportunity to start fresh, increase the rents, but also get the unit back to where you want it.
Yeah.
And if the tenant moves out and you're obligated not to raise the rent more than that 1.5 or 1.8, it's going to be incredibly difficult to recapture any budget that you had to get that unit back where you wanted. New cabinets, that's out.
How
It
are
would be
they
very
how are
difficult.
they going to police that? You think?
I don't think they're going to be able to.
Right.
Yeah, well, like it certainly like my inner libertarian just shudders at the thought of it. I don't think that you fix a lot of problems through legislation or regulation, and I understand the sentiment that's behind the idea, right? Like they're thinking that this is going to make housing more affordable and make things better for the renter. But what's going to end up happening is you're going to, like, a lot of landlords are going to shrug and they're going to end up being forced to become slumlords because that's going to be the only way that they're going to be able to see profit. And so you're going to see tons more of deferred maintenance, right? Because, like John's saying, that people aren't going to want to invest heavily into their properties. And what ends up happening is theoretically that even suppresses the actual value of the underlying asset because you can no longer get the returns that are expected. And inflation ends up eating your lunch because what's actually true inflation versus what's the prescribed inflation that we're actually getting our rents increased by, there is a gap there. So yeah, I find it very frustrating. I agree. I think it's highly unlikely that we see it actually come into fruition. But if it did, it would certainly, if not be devastating, there would be a very significant transition period where a lot of us would have to get new sea legs, I think.
Definitely. I don't think the people who support it, and I'm sorry if there are some viewers who support it, but I don't think they've thought it through. It can create a serious cascading effect. It would affect property values, as you said. That affects property taxes. So I mean, if you again do your own research and check it out, there aren't that many steps between trying to protect a tenant with this rule, which might come from a good place, and suddenly failing to have the funds to repair the roads. It's not a stretch. It's all very connected.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree. And then, the mortgage regulation, circling back to that, we've talked about it a few times on the Cash Flow Go show. Again, I think the market will adapt very fast to that. I don't think that there's a lot of significant issues there. Like, it's funny how quickly we adapt to new mortgage rules in real estate. So it'll be the new norm in 6 months from now.
One other interesting thing to mention, don't want to go too far down the hole with this, but just one thing that I don't think many people are thinking about, there are some coming changes to the Ontario Municipal Board,
Yes,
OMB.
that I don't like either.
Of course not, but at the end of the day what it means is that municipalities have complete control or nearly complete control over what they get to pass or fail. Previously when you had an aggressive municipality where you had some city councillors who were listening to particularly loud residents who wanted NIMBYs.
That is
people
exactly.
who wanted no improvement, no change.
Yeah.
You could get city councillors killing good condo projects that everyone needed to even keep the concept of affordable housing alive. And so the OMB, for those who don't know, was a way to kind of get that fixed. So you have a loud resident who's in the ear of a councillor who's killing something that's good for the community, and the OMB would fix it. Now the OMB can't fix it. So if municipalities decide that construction isn't really their thing anymore, we're stuck.
Yeah, and I don't think people understand the full implications of that being rolled out, because like at first, the NIMBYs, and so NIMBYism stands for, not in my backyard, and so it's just like people that are really loud and complaining about other people that are trying to actually do shit, pretty much is what NIMBYism, at least is in my definition.
Exactly.
And it's so frustrating, but like what could end up happening is like you could have a council literally just like destroy growth in a city, right? And it's going to hurt those individual developers. But what a lot of people don't realize is that if that continues as a policy, that like they can destroy that entire community, right? Like all of a sudden, if you make it really not fun for us to play in your neighborhoods, we'll eventually stop playing in your neighborhoods. And like you're going to see deterioration, less investment, less demand for those properties, less demand for the underlying land itself. And I don't think it's a good idea, and I think it's unfortunate.
It's worrying potentially.
Mhm.
We'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah. Anything else going on?
Yep, the commentators were wondering why you guys are so generous with sharing all the information and why you're so involved in the community and giving back to others.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate that, first of all. And if you want to get back to us, share this right now on social media. Smash that like button. If you're not already subscribed, hit that beautiful subscribe button. But honestly, I think like this is a passion and a hobby of ours, right? So we enjoy talking about it. All of us have, I believe, been in the position where at one point you were kind of a lone wolf, and like probably a lot of people kind of thought you were crazy or weird for wanting to do this. You have a good job. Why would you want to do this? Or like, why would you want to take on that risk? Why would you want to be a slumlord? And I think to us, it's just a fun way to, share our passion and hobby, at least for myself. John?
Well, I'd echo that. It's I spent again some of my career in tech, right? And I believed in the work that I did, but tech isn't tactile to some people. Some people, think apps come and go. Some people don't feel it's real. Housing is about as real as it gets.
Yeah.
It is fundamental for our society. Without it, we don't have a society at all. So it's a big deal. You're providing real value, fundamental value. And I mean, people could have issues with certain landlords, or they heard
Sure.
the slumlord word again.
Yeah.
But no one says that housing providers don't do anything.
Yeah, that's
Housing
true.
providers are absolutely important. Some of the most important people in a community. And so I enjoy talking about it. But I enjoy having such a pivotal role. If people like me all went away, everyone would be in trouble.
Yeah.
I'm needed.
Yeah.
It's just like our give to the audience, our friends, our London on Fire members. So, and we got a meet up on Tuesday, and
Yeah.
these are all like free to come out to. Just like we have experienced landlords that have potentially made mistakes, and we just don't want to see anyone else make those mistakes in the future. So it's just like giving away our info. It all comes around, goes around.
Well, yeah, and absolutely. Like at the end of the day, us doing this, us creating London on Fire, being at Bigger Pockets, doing Lyric, us doing the Cash Flow to Go live show. It's all about like positioning ourselves as experts about real estate. And so what ends up happening, if you want to call this a selfish motive, feel free to. But people start bringing their problems to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's opportunities in those problems, right? And we're able to help solve their problem and find profit in solving that problem. So it's still like, it definitely is just about creating a community of like-minded people. And I talk about it all the time on my channel that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so I just want to spend more time with guys like John and Jeff. So that's what this is about too. So
Quinn Thomas has a question for you guys. John, I know you had mentioned when you first started, and Matt, you guys were both doing burr properties, and Jeff, yourself maybe a little bit as well. Now, when you look at investment properties, do you prioritize homes that you can still burr or renovate, or do you look for homes that are ready to move in and fill tenants in?
I look for price first. So if a property is rough and obviously needs attention, I'll build that into my model. But price is what motivates me to show up and look at the property in the first place. So if it's too expensive for my model, I don't care how it looks, I'm not even going. If it fits my model, I will then see what I have to do to make it happen. I have had buildings, I purchased buildings that almost seemed unsaleable. We have a limited investor pool in our market, so all of the usual people that walk through, and they all said, I don't like that. And so I was the last guy in. It was either me or it doesn't sell. And yeah, presented really poorly, but for several $1,000s, I made it nice and shiny. So you really have to look at what needs to be done. My projects aren't enormous. Most of them don't need building permits. It's just about what you come across. But I probably renovate less than you would guess that I do.
yeah, and I definitely the same is true with a lot of my projects. I know when Graham Steffen came down, he was shocked to see the type of renovations I'm doing. But like honestly, a lot of the properties I'm going into have been neglected, but are still structurally sound. You know what I mean? Like they maybe need a new toilet or a new backsplash or new kitchen cabinets. They always need new paint. They've probably been usually what ends up happening is, someone's been living in there that's a smoker for the last 20 years, and the walls are just dripping with nicotine, the glass is just dripping with nicotine. But that's actually a relatively easy solve, right? Same with replacing floors. That's all very fast and basic. But today my investment strategy is still very similar to what it's been in the past, where I am mainly focusing on burrable properties where I'm able to get in, fix up the property, and then get out most of my money, or these days it ends up being mostly my partner's money. So that we're essentially $0 into the property, but still have 20% equity, and that's kind of the buffer that's our sleep at night factor, is that we know we have that 20% equity buffer.
Exactly.
And so Jeff's,
I first just started out making sure the property's cash flowed. That's kind of how I learned to do it. Didn't know about the BRRRR at the time when I first started buying. So, but basically, you can be running all the numbers on these properties before you even go to them, and save you a lot of time. You should be going through all of the properties on the MLS that pop up. So
well, and the funny thing is now Jeff, he bought those good cash flowing properties, and now kind of 5 years later, you're just burning them now, or you're just upgrading them to their highest potential, getting them reevaluated.
All from hanging out with this network, really. So even me, learning from everybody here. So
That's great.
Yeah.
I've actually been slower to refinance because I've been accumulating so many properties more recently. So at one point I obviously had a smaller portfolio, and I had this plan to do a refinance from time to time every couple of months, kind of get through them in order, and hopefully refinance everything I had over a 2-year period. And then I got more properties, and no, I can't really refinance small in the 2 years. It's so much paperwork and banking, and so I'm slower to do it now, and probably have less cash on hand because of that.
Yeah.
But at least it's an available option.
And so we haven't really talked about it yet, John, but I'd be very curious to hear what's your long-term plan? Is there an exit strategy, or is there a point where you're like, okay, I'm done the accumulation phase, it's now just maintain, or is it just as long as it's fun?
Sam Zell is a very, very wealthy investor who I respect, and I kind of like his strategy. He's a real estate guy, but he always says that he's not exclusively real estate. So I think I'm going to be invested in multifamily, probably for good. For the midterm, it's going to be substantially multifamily. I'm not going to make it a small portion of my portfolio and go to something completely new for the bulk of it. But I don't want to I don't want to do it just for the sake of loving real estate. I'm always going to reevaluate as time goes on and see if I need to pivot, but nothing has shown me, I haven't seen any research that really says I need to pivot. Even there's legislation and things that concern some, it doesn't affect me in my market the same way. So I'm in, I'm just going to keep building. And also, back to that 1031 exchange thing, you can't sell and dodge capital gains. There's just no way to do it. So I'm just going to accumulate slowly, minimize my taxes by not dumping everything I've got and then going to cash. And that's the long-term plan.
And so right now, are you your investment portfolio, is it pretty much all real estate, or do you do other things as well?
No, I don't do anything else with any substantial sum of money. No, I try things, but I'll test.
Yeah.
I don't want to be someone who misses something or someone who isn't paying attention to what else is going on in the world. Of course, I read about Bitcoin, but no, the vast majority of the money is in real estate.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's definitely at the moment true for myself and Jeff as well. And I think what ends up happening is just a lot of people, we find our niche and we kind of double down on that niche until we get to a point where then we decide, okay, it's now more about maintaining, I'm going to pivot and start getting diversified.
So you guys have a strong knowledge of the Ontario market and your local specific market. Have you guys thought of investing internationally in the U.S., with bigger pockets being a U.S. or North American U.S.-based podcast? Have you looked at maybe doing joint ventures with others out there?
I've considered it. I talked to various people about it from time to time. I went to a meetup a couple of months ago, and very respectfully, without poking or being too rude, I talked to this one person. I tried to ascertain about what their net worth was and about how many properties they had, and when he started investing in the U.S. and I inquired about his legal bills and what corporations he had, and so after talking to him for 15 or 20 minutes, I decided that if I were him, I wouldn't have jumped. I would have waited. I feel like he did it a little early, and he was buying, I think he bought a duplex on its own to start, and I felt that the costs he was incurring weren't really reasonable for the size of the investment. I think I'll probably jump at some point. Not that I'll liquidate what I have here. I'll probably kind of start a second branch and go into the U.S. But you've got to have enough money to make it worth your while, or you're going to get eaten by all the little costs.
Yeah, all my real estate right now is located completely inside London, Ontario city limits. That being said, like John, I see myself in the future potentially building up a portfolio of other properties outside, but I think probably still my core holdings will be in the market where I'm the expert, which is London, Ontario. However, one thing that I do find very tempting is the idea of owning a couple properties in large metro cities, either around North America or around the world, and being able to use those as Airbnbs, as well as kind of a very interesting lifestyle hack, where I can maybe travel to those cities, have a place to stay that's relatively inexpensive. I'm just using the asset when it's not being fully utilized. One thing that's like randomly on my radar these days is Panama, because Mitt started talking about Panama a lot, and I was like, man, that sounds cheap, but that sounds amazing. And so I definitely could see like some sort of vacation rental in the future, but definitely not on the short-term horizon for myself.
I know an investor personally, fairly well actually, who liquidated everything in Ontario and bought in Panama.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to learn more about that
The
after.
Chinese for spending billions there.
But he doesn't want to be a day-to-day landlord anymore. He's kind of finished that. But Panama was his choice.
Yeah, interesting.
It's funny, even like some Graham Stephan fans that might be on this have been asking me like, when's the Weibo limo coming to the States? And so maybe we'll have to like set up a pretty good investment tour in like Texas or something or whoever
That'd
reaches
be
out.
pretty cool.
Franchise it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we're working on
Well,
it.
yeah.
Stefan, do the Weibo limo.
Yeah. Take it. Yeah.
Gene Simon's got another question. In order to increase, I guess, the value of your properties, have you considered investing in solar panels and hiking rents to compensate for any electricity that the tenants would save on as a result?
Well,
Yeah.
Ontario-wise, you can't hike their rents up once you do that. So that's for one. Maybe in different markets, I think Alberta possibly, you can do market value and just shoot the rents up if applicable. I think Justin and Laura are looking into that a lot.
I think it's interesting. I think what it really comes down to is you just, like anything else, you're going to have to really know your numbers on this investment. I think a lot of people just get caught up in hype and pull the trigger before they fully understand the full spectrum of results.
When it first came out, it wasn't a great returns, and now it's like
So I certainly know growing up on farm, like I know farm families that built and like they're doing really well, but they got locked in at very high contract prices, and you no longer get those favorable rates. So there definitely is some volatility there. I think it's interesting. Realistically, for myself, based on my rough understanding, I see greater returns in getting the next property versus optimizing and tweaking to perfect what I currently have. I think it comes down to like the 80-20 principle, where like I'm getting a lot of my properties to good enough, and then like once they're good enough, it makes more sense to go buy another thing that's terrible and get it to good enough versus get good enough to perfect.
That's a really good point. That's been my experience as well. I think if you are in a property that has a low cap rate and you want to be a low cap investor, maybe you're renting to high-end tenants and you're hoping to have very few issues, then perhaps you don't need the same return and the solar panels make more sense. I looked at it years ago. My concern back then, when the pay was a lot better, was that the quality of the product was not there, and that by the time I finished paying for the panels, that they might be garbage. Now the quality of the product has improved and the payments are lower. So we might be in the same place all these years later.
Yeah.
Right, and then you forget like all the maintenance costs related to the solar panels and all of that, which people don't necessarily factor in as well.
Exactly.
We're approaching at 6:30 now. So
Okay, great.
How many
Thank
people?
you.
We've got about 15 people watching right now.
Thanks everyone that's done it. If you guys haven't done it, smash that like button, and I don't know, we can probably stick around for a few more minutes if there's more questions. So pile in right now and hit us up with some fast, quick questions, and we'll fire them off for you.
Stocks versus real estate.
Is that your question?
That was the
That's
question.
your question.
So yeah, like I do have a portfolio of stocks. Right now I'm not overly diversified. I guess so. I actually have multiple different little stock portfolios. So I have my drip portfolio, and I've recently just started talking about drip investing on my channel. And so I don't even know what I have in there, but it produces what would produce? Maybe $50, $100 a month, and like dividend payments, and like that's just kind of one little income stream for myself. And then I have some more speculative stocks I'm invested in, and then the vast majority of my wealth is tied up in real estate. That's kind of personal preference. I'm not saying that that's advice for everyone to do. I think it really comes down to, you know, are you going to become an expert in stocks or real estate? And you can do both, but you need some strong financial knowledge, in my opinion, if you're going to be investing in direct equities that aren't, say, blue cap or blue chips. Sorry.
You can leverage up buying stocks if you know how, but it's quite risky. The same opportunities for leverage aren't there.
Yeah.
I once did Forex at 400 to 1 leverage before they got rid of it.
Oh, really?
Very briefly. I'm not a Forex expert. I don't know what I'm talking about.
So how'd you get started in that?
There's a broker I worked with.
Oh, okay. Interesting. How'd you make out with that?
Very well until I didn't. Extremely well one day. Yeah.
Interesting.
So sure, you could do stocks if you think it's better for you than real estate, but if you're going to get above market returns, you have to be an expert and know what you're doing.
Yeah,
What
like
it is.
I literally think it comes down to this. I hear of so many people investing in stocks and investing directly in equities, and yet they could never read a cash flow, let alone, you know, understand the notes in financial disclosures. And, you know, my background as a CPA, like that's what I used to do as a full-time job, and I still consider myself barely competent to actually fully understand the full implications. Like there's a lot of information in understanding that entire business inside and out if you really want to have be investing in it. Now the alternative is you get like something broader, right? ETFs are a great way if you just want to kind of track the market. I think it really comes down to kind of, are you in a maintenance mode or an accumulation mode in regards to your wealth? I definitely see myself in the future divesting myself, well, not divesting from real estate, but certainly increasing the proportion of equities I own, just to create a little bit more of a balance in my portfolio. And so I think Jeff right now is mainly
real estate. Just quick, I don't know how it fits perfectly, but my cousin, he'll be up at 4 a.m. watching like the China markets and then across Europe all the way. So like, there's somebody who's like at least fully invested into stocks, not just like, I want to buy stocks, right? And I'm gonna buy just on the North American time. So it's just kind of like just same way we're like delving into real estate, right? So there's somebody who's like studying it, and then he's done by about lunchtime. He already knows what to buy.
And like again, just like with real estate, like investing in real estate or investing in stocks is a very broad topic, right? But yeah, sorry, this was supposed to be fast.
No, of course.
Any other questions?
What did you guys fail at before real estate?
Fail at?
So you clearly, in order to get what you have, you've gone through some trials.
So I'll let these guys think it over. I already know that I'm good at failing. I actually have a whole video talking about my failures. So starting off originally, the very first like kind of real business I had was in high school. We ran a paintball field, and it was a break-even endeavor. It was really just a way to kind of be able to support our hobby and get it cheaper, but by no means was it a financial success. And then moving on to that, in university, my third year, we started up a clothing store in Grand Bend. And so it was like a knick-knack clothing store, skateboard store. And so again, we started it with no business plan, no nothing, but really almost just looking at it as tuition, like business school tuition, if you will, and broke even from it. Again, we would have spent 50 to 80 hours a week each on this, and all we did was not lose money. Most people would call that a financial failure. And I also, for a while, dabbled in penny mining stocks, and that was really good until it wasn't. And again, I managed to walk away maybe with $100 more than I started with, but by no means was it a screaming financial success when you consider the amount of work and effort I put into it. So yeah, long history of failures, but at the same time, like it's only really a true failure if you stop learning from it. Like as long as you're moving forward, I wouldn't get stressed out about small failures or missteps. But
I think it's part of growing up, right?
Yeah.
I started early, just like you. I joined a couple of multi-level marketing companies at one point. Honestly, I did better than a lot of people do, though it still didn't work out. Most of the other things that I've tried before going to zero are tech related. I've had websites where I sold game content subscriptions. I put all my money at the time, very misguided, into a startup. I wanted to compete with Twitter. Twitter there was this kind of pivotal moment where everyone realized that the concept of Twitter might be successful in our world. As I was one of the people who jumped in right then. As soon as it was apparent there could be some traction, we all tried to go after Twitter, and so that went down too. So, but I mean, ultimately, real estate is quite stable, and I think much of what brought me into real estate was getting tired of some of the ups and downs. That it's good to fail fast and then move on to the next thing. But I'm willing to admit it takes a lot out of you. Some people say, oh, just fail and fail and fail and you'll get it. And just stay positive. Failing can be brutal. So I did get a little tired of the tech things just going down the tubes. So, as I failed and as I pivoted, I also, moved into an area where there's a lot more support and where you can really build a base.
Yeah, and Jeff? Like, I know you did some drop shipping back in the day.
Yeah, but I'll go even further back. And just, this is probably a good video for me to make in the future, but at 21, I was contracted in a job, the J word, right? And it was a 2-year contract, but then it was going to go into salaried employment, okay? So you're just like contracted at the beginning. I won't get into what the job was at the moment, but I thought that was going to be my career for my entire life. And they were going to be paying me, once I got over to here, in the salaried position, like $90,000 or something like that, salaried. I'd go to Mexico one time a year, and I'd feel like I'm living, right? Like, kind of take that March break and take off. You get your holidays, you put in a shift work, this and that. And at the end of that contract, I got one Thursday just like, hey, we're not hiring you to move on to the salaried portion. And it was just like cold turkey, one day, unemployed. And everybody said, don't worry, it's going to be for the better, and all this bullshit of like failing, right?
Yeah.
And at the moment, you're just like, this is fucking...
It's hard to not take that as an ego.
Yeah, like it sucked because it was against you, right? Mm-hmm. And then, some people might say I got the short end of the stick in my peer groups, at least that kind of helped, but at the end of the day, I had no employment. I could either sit there and cry about it for a long time, but I was able to, like, at least with the Army, pop back with them and do a bunch of Army stuff, which then I eventually did some other, I'll hopefully cover it in a video, like some other life things that kind of helped me, and then went on to do 2 Afghanistan tours, and came home and bought real estate, and now I'm 33. So if I was 21 and I was 23 when I kind of failed, now we're 10 years later, and every single one of my peers that was still there wish they were kind of with me here at this point now. And I'll probably be retired like very shortly, hopefully. So.
Yeah, like to me, honestly, like, failure creates stress, and stress creates growth if you approach it right. And I think that's really powerful. Anything else going on, Mitch, or should we?
There's nobody actually. They were asking about what resources you guys do about real estate, but I told them to check out your channels and to check Bigger Pockets.
Awesome. So otherwise, if you guys haven't smashed the like button, thanks so much to John for joining us. I think this was awesome. Definitely great flow, and it was great learning more about just kind of your backstory.
Thank you.
Super awesome.
I'll have to have you back.
And so if people want to hit you up, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
It'd be great if you follow me on Instagram. Again, I guess we'll put the link below.
I'll pull it up quick.
Sure.
Just to yell it out.
Sure.
If you want to just spell it out.
My username on Instagram, JONKEPLER. If you use Instagram, just send me a private message on there. Didn't mention this earlier, but from time to time I get people on Instagram just messaging me real estate questions. It's kind of a normal thing for me now. I just every so often I open my messages and I'll answer a couple of real estate questions.
I guess there's like one more question. Are you guys looking to use HELOCs on your investment properties and pay them off in like 5 to 7 years or anything like that?
I'll take leverage however I can get it. So I have a variety of mortgages, HELOCs, and HELOCs that are growing as I pay down the mortgage portion, and the HELOC grows proportionately. I think there's all kinds of interesting products. I'm not sure what your experience is, John.
Yeah, it's been a few years since I used a traditional HELOC like that, but I mean those are registered in second position anyway, right? So I'll get second mortgages, maybe the more traditional way without the card attached. I do that. I have arranged them through mortgage brokers. I've arranged them through private investors that I've gotten to know through networking. Got to watch your interest rates, but whatever works for the deal. Depending, all depends on the property, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes you'll have a financing concept in mind for the property, and the property won't be able to support it, and then you've got to, put that aside and try again.
Mhm.
But I'll do it when I can.
Yeah, and otherwise, thanks everyone for watching. If you're not watching this live, still you have the opportunity to ask your questions. Just jump in the comment section after this video is posted, and me and Jeff are always trolling it, so we'll definitely respond to your comments. I respond to like 99% of the comments on my channel. If you guys haven't subscribed to Jeff's channel, definitely jump over there. Jeff Weibel just hit 302 subscribers, so that's
Oh,
a nice
wow.
milestone.
Great.
I remember when I had 300, that was awesome. And 500's just around the corner. I know Jeff would love that Christmas present of hitting 500. So go ahead and make his day. And I always love subscribers. And the best way you can share my channel is share it on Facebook. Just like share your favorite video of mine. I got a full spectrum of videos, minimalism, real estate, stocks, all that stuff. So again, really appreciate you guys for watching. And otherwise, until next time, remember, making money's a team sport. There's more than enough money out there for us all to make it. But if you're not saving it, what's the point, guys? Thanks.